right, now, yep. See, now I'm gun shy. I'm forgetting stuff. I had the daggum order of service in front of my face. It says welcome and announcements directly underneath that song. Uh, and honestly, for the life of me, I'm looking at this girl up here playing the guitar going, what is wrong with you? We're supposed to go to the next song. What's wrong with her is that I forgot we're supposed to do welcome and announcements. And so now I'm like, man, did we forget something in service? Are we forgetting anything? If not, somebody will remind me. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here. In all fairness, to just, I guess, let you know where I'm at, what's going on, so that you're always prepared. I like to be prepared. These are my notes for this morning. Bears kick off in 2 minutes. No, I'm just playing. These are my notes for this morning because this one's personal. And so to start this thing off, I feel like we've got to all get on the same page. I like communication at that level. If we're not on the same page, it just doesn't work. So if you would, please before we get here, last week we talked about the fear and the ability we have sometimes to provide for our family. Today, I want to talk about the fear we have inside of family hurt, family trauma. Yeah? Like we're gonna get a little thick today. I'm gonna get in your face, I'm gonna get up intimately in you, get mad, don't care. Still don't have an official church email yet. Not anybody's fault but my own. So if you get upset today, jeremiah@thechurch.com will reach me. I'll read it. It'll be fine. But family hurt, like we're going to deal with some of that today. And so again, to get on the same page, I feel like we all have to share where we're at. And so I have a video. It's short-ish, but it's well worth it. So please just watch for me real quick. Lean back. First roller coaster, here we go. You ready? Let's do it! Hey, hang on to daddy, I've got you. Too funny. You okay? What do you think? Was it good? No. It wasn't good? Well, it's this way. It was taken like this. It would have had it up. But family trauma, Emily's first roller coaster. I guess in fairness, you saw the trauma on her face throughout the majority of it. There's one little spot where you'll see towards the end of the video where she looks off to the side and she gives a really, she sees Amanda, and she realizes help as she's flying by. It's not just Emily. We tortured Ryan as well, and I think the next picture might show a little family trauma from Lila. I didn't want to leave anybody out. Maybe not. Go to the next photo. Okay, so that should have been the first photo, just to make sure everyone's on the same page again, because I like it. Emily was not traumatized. That was Legoland. She became #coaster queen for the day. Those 4 pictures of the signs, those are the 4 roller coasters. Those are the first four roller coasters she ever rode in her life. As you could tell from the first video to the very far picture up on the right, she is perfectly okay. And then after it's done, I don't know what she's doing, but she's the champion. The last photo, then, this is Lila. We didn't discriminate. Didn't discriminate, man. Family trauma. I'm trying to just make sure, or family hurt. I'm trying to make sure that this lesson is taught through my family. But no, right? Like the idea, I was talking to Amanda about this, and I mentioned showing this video, and Emily, all of us, no, you're not. I said, babe, but you don't understand. Like, it's so perfect. No, you're not. You don't understand. I don't want anybody watching this. And so, again, this is me sacrificing myself for the betterment of the people that I lead. This is true leadership, right? True leadership. I'm going to be in trouble with my kid because I want you guys to just see we're real people and I got a real lesson to teach. And so that's for you. Don't worry about it. It's free because I love you. But again, right, family hurt. It's funny to look at some of these. They're fine. There's a few other pictures of Lila in the dog kennel where we just left it a little too long and she's crying, but I didn't want to show those. This is fine. Just for the sake of my psyche, please get that off the screen. Go to the title page. Thank you. As I just keep staring at Lila with her fingers in her mouth, locked in the dog kennel. In truth, it's just giving me ideas for today because she's going to irritate me while I'm watching the game. But spooky season, talking about fear. I want to talk about family hurt today. This was a comment that was made to me as I was talking about these ideas and talking through my head with people. But when you have family hurt, if you don't address it, that family hurt turns into trauma. And that trauma sits. And that trauma becomes heavy. And that trauma is something then that you have to actively fight, struggle, suffer through. I think everybody here in this room, everybody listening online, you have some form or fashion of family hurt that swings the pendulum all the way to family trauma. This does not escape me because this is my real life at my current moment right now. Family hurt, if not dealt with, will turn into trauma. Trauma is something, because I have an issue and I have to keep things sounding the same, hopefully, so that you'll retain them. But trauma makes you toil inside of your work. You will struggle. You will spin. You will wrestle. And you will fight. You will get kicked around. You will be beat up. You will be broken and bloodied. But my hope today is, I guess my hope for myself, as God laid this message on my heart, for me, not for you, for me, is that I can deal with my family hurt so that my family hurt does not turn into family trauma. What's the best way? For me, I asked the question, what's the best way for me to really learn this? And God was very, very loud that I'm supposed to read through the life of Joseph. Joseph. Coat of many colors, Joseph, right? Pharaoh, number 2, Joseph. This Joseph. And so in Genesis, we're going to start in chapter 37. I know the Bears are playing right now, but again, DVR. That all being said, I'm going to try to kick it the exact same way we normally do. But Genesis 37 through Genesis 40-something, 44, 46 is the whole chunk. I believe it's 46. Maybe it's a little bit before that. But anyway, gigantic chunk, about 7 chapters of this guy's life. We're going to look at a few places because I believe there's a few places that produce a few principles that anybody, everybody, no matter if you have family hurt or family trauma or none of it because you're better than me spiritually in your maturity and you've gotten to where you've forgiven, you've moved on and moved past. And if that is you, trust, don't be ashamed, don't be arrogant. Please share the process with the other people that are going through it. Because sometimes, right, when you're trying to heal inside of family hurt, it is almost impossible to get past things. So I want to look at Joseph. I want to look at Joseph's life, and I'm going to start here in chapter 37. Jacob, Esau. We've had this split. Jacob has sons and daughters, but sons that now will become the 12 tribes of Israel. We don't know that yet in the story, but we do because of prophecy. But now because we have the whole book, we should know it because we've read it. If you don't know it, spoiler alert, I'm sorry. But chapter 37, we're going to pick up here in verse 3. No, 2, maybe? 3, I think. Yeah. So it says, now Israel, this is Jacob. He had his name changed when he wrestled with God, and God touched his hip, and it was just fantastic. But you can read that earlier in the 20s of Genesis and into the 30s. But verse 3, now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his sons because he was the son in his old age. Let me make no mistake about this. Parents have favorites. And if any parent tells you you don't have a favorite kid, they're straight up lying to your face. I'm a parent, period, the end. I know this. Why? Because I've had all of your children. I know if you got favorites or not. And I know who's not your favorite because they're normally the ones that hang out with me more. Not because, it's because you're sending them away. But listen, don't lie. You got favorites. I'm at least honest with my children. I have a favorite, yes. It revolves like the door every day, and it can revolve throughout the day. Trust that Lila started out as the favorite because she's the less mouthy, and by the end of the day, or nay, even just lunchtime, she is no longer the favorite. All 4 cats and the dog are above her, and the dog's toy, Mickey, above her as well. So have absolutely, right, yeah, there's favorites. Act right, and you'll be the favorite. It's showered upon blessing upon blessing. It's a poor example of what God does. I understand this, but, I'm just trying to teach in every way I can to my children. But Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his sons because he was the son of his old age. Bank that, because it doesn't matter why your kid is your favorite. It's going to pose a problem. Verse 3 continued, because it's unto old age, and he made him a robe of many colors. Verse 4. Excuse me. Verse 4. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. Parents, pay attention. Verse 5. Now Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, verse 7, behold, we are binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright, and behold, your sheaves, they all gathered, and they bowed down to my sheaf. His brothers said to him, are you indeed to reign over us? Are you indeed to rule over us? So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Understand this, I am a firstborn by the purest of definitions and titles. I am the leader. Why? I'm first. That's why. That doesn't make any sense. Yes, it does. God said you're first, not Zechariah, not Japheth, not Harmony, Cana, or Olivia, Jeremiah. I'm the first. Not Josiah. I'm the first. That means something to me. I'm the leader. I'm the standard. I'm the example. My daughters, God love them. I'm so difficult on them sometimes, or so hard on them sometimes because I see the potential, especially my eldest, because I see her potential, and I see sometimes the way I took being the firstborn, and I make you take it as well. As a firstborn, having my little brother come up and say I was going to have to bow down to him, I'd have knocked him out cold. Done. Don't ever speak to me like that again. It's no wonder his brothers hated him. Keep that nonsense to yourself. My brother mouthed off one time, and we used to have boxing gloves, and I popped him hardcore. My mom didn't get in trouble because my mom said, listen, you probably shouldn't have said that. Right? Joseph, I got this dream I want to tell my brothers. Make no mistake about it. We don't read some of this, but as you look at Joseph's life and you read through it and you put your life up to it and what you learn about life up to it, you will learn that while Joseph, and we're going to point this thing out, walked hand in hand with God through all of it, Joseph had issues. And his issues were some of his issues were his pride and his arrogance. Now, his dad fluffed that up, but Joseph had issues, and he was running his mouth. This is my dream. It goes on in verse 9. Then he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, behold, I dreamed another dream. because the first one wasn't awesome enough for me. Let me tell you about the second one. Behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars, your mother and your father, or me and your mother, excuse me, this is verse 10. Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you? Verse 11, and his brothers were jealous of him, but his fathers kept this saying in his mind. This is the one thing that I learned, this is the first thing that I learned from looking at Joseph's life when it comes to my fear revolving around family hurt, is that there's always things that we can work on. There's always things that we can work on. There's always things that we can work on. If you're sitting in family hurt right now, understand this. No matter what, you have something you can work on to be better. My family hurt is not my fault. But I got things I can work on. One of them being forgiveness inside of the person who hurt me, yeah? No matter what, Joseph, you could have been a little more humble. No matter what, brothers, you could have understood the idea or just the blessing that Joseph was to your mother and father in such an old age. You could put less stock in some of the little words that he's actually saying. Father, you could have probably been a little more intelligent and not been so blatantly ugly about how much more you loved Joseph than the rest of your children. We always have things that we can work on. We always got things we can work on. All right? Joseph's story doesn't stop there, bro. Little Joker's wearing his jacket. At least in my vision of this telling of the story, he's wearing his little coat because he's, I was going to say a certain word, but I got in trouble earlier for saying it. But he was just, lollygagging around, hanging out. His dad's like, hey, go see your brothers. So he goes to find his brothers. He finds where they used to be. It says he's just wandering. Some guy's like, yo, what are you doing, little boy? And he goes, I'm looking for my brothers. He goes, they have left. They're over here. And it says that as he was going, we're going to pick back up here, but in verse, where am I at here? 18. Yep, verse 18, chapter 37. It says his brothers, they saw him, Joseph, from afar. They saw him coming towards them. And it says, before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. I have siblings. I have younger siblings. Flesh, but I understand this. Okay? I understand this. My brother, Zechariah, and I, one of us probably shouldn't be here. From the throwing of PVC pipes to the stabbing of knives to the pushing off the roof that we have shared with each other, one of us probably shouldn't be here. But I sort of get this. I think if you have siblings, you probably get this. But I would venture to say you get this just in feeling and frustration. I'm not so sure you get this in actual practice. As much as I hated my younger brothers growing up, I don't think I ever could have killed them, because I do remember when wrestling was a big thing in my family, me and my brother would wrestle, and I powerbombed him one time, and I knocked his neck on the ground, and he just laid there, and I thought, oh God, I did kill him. Please wake him back up, Father. Please help me. And I was like, God, don't tell Mom, don't tell Mom. He finally, he got up. He was fine. He's got ticks, but he's okay. He's doing all right. He's fine. He's fine, guys. He's fine, I promise. But it says, right, in verse 18, that they conspired to kill him. Why? Because he was arrogant, because their father loved him. They could see it blatantly loved him more. Verse 19. They said to one another, here comes this dreamer. Verse 20, come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will say that a fierce animal has devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams. They planned this thing out. We're going to kill him, throw him in a pit, and then we're going to tell Dad an animal got him. I realize the deviant mind that my middle one has as a situation unfolded this week, and we realized not only did she have a terrible idea, she had it planned out perfectly to a T. That way all of her bases were covered. And I thought, we need to watch her a little bit more. Right? But they had it planned out. We'll kill him. We'll throw him in a pit. We'll tell Dad an animal got him. What could go wrong? Verse 21, but Reuben heard it, and he rescued him out of their hands, saying, let us not take his life. Verse 22, Reuben said to them, shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hands to restore him to his father. So Reuben had an idea that said, hey, listen, let's not kill him, let's just throw him in the pit. And then I had an ulterior motive to go save him later and bring him back to Dad. So in Joseph, verse 23, when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore, and they took him, threw him into a pit. The pit was empty, and there was no water into it. Church hurt, bro. You ever been drugged to a pit, beat up by your siblings, and thrown in there and left to die? That's some church hurt. Church hurt, excuse me. That might be church hurt. That probably would hurt by the church too. But more specifically speaking of what we're talking about today, that's some family hurt. Your brothers turned on you. I teach my children. We teach our family, my wife and I. Family is first, right? Blood is thicker than water, for sure. And make sure you understand the real meaning of that phrase. The blood of the bonds is thicker than the water of the womb. The bonds that I choose to make are thicker, are greater than the bonds of what God gives me in my family. That's what blood is thicker than water means. Not, it's family first. Yeah, you're right, it is family first. It's my family first, right? Teach my children, you need to choose your family. You need to protect your family. You need to look out for your family. Being drugged and beaten up and thrown into a pit. And if you keep reading, it says later on that as they were sitting, after they beat him up and threw him in the pit, they went to eat. Blows my mind. They literally sentenced him to death. And then they went and just, we're tired. Let's restore some strength. Let's eat. So they eat, and as they're eating, they see a caravan, and they turn around and they sell Joseph to this caravan. This is the second thing. As I read through Joseph's life, I learn, and I learn about church hurt. No, stop saying that. I got issues I got to deal with, apparently. Family hurt. Not only is there always something that we can work on, but actions have consequences. Actions have consequences. Jacob's actions towards his son Joseph had the consequences of his other children not liking Joseph. Joseph. Actions had consequences. By running his mouth. By not being aware that Dad actually did love him more. My grandma bear was the best. My cousins don't all agree. Here's why. My grandma was vocal. I'm the favorite. There's Jeremiah, and then everyone else gets to fight for the rest. Listen, this is an arrogance. This is what my grandma said. There are cousins of mine that never went to grandma's stuff. They were okay when she passed. And it was because they don't have the same grandma that I had. And that was because it was blatantly obvious by her actions that I was the favorite. Because her mouth even said those words, that I'm the favorite. Now, she had her reasons. Whatever, I don't care. My cousins are good with me because we made a relationship. But I was aware enough to understand this. that grandma was very grossly outweighed towards me. I got everything and anything I wanted. So what did I do? I was aware enough to know if I was hanging out with my cousins, what do we want? Well, we want this. Bet. Grandma, I want this. Boom, done. It's called playing the game, bro. Actions have consequences. Joseph was not aware. His actions had consequences. Telling his brothers his dream got his mouth kicked around, right? Like, listen, sometimes we tell kids in school, you keep talking this way and doing this stuff, someone's going to pop you in the mouth, right? Joseph continued to run his mouth, and his brothers popped him in the mouth and then put him in a pit and turned around and sold him into slavery. And that was it. Listen, if you're dealing with family hurt, and you're dealing with family hurt, maybe it's gone so much that it's into family trauma, you need to understand you need to understand first and foremost that there are always things that we can work on. We includes you and I. So in this, there's something you can work on. You need to understand actions have consequences. The actions of how I am behaving inside of my family hurt, I'm realizing they do actually have consequences. The relationship is no longer what it used to be. The relationship doesn't have the same expectations and standards that it used to have. The relationship is drastically different. And I have to understand that some of that is due to the consequences of my actions. Joseph is sold into slavery. As he's sold into slavery, he's sold to this caravan. The caravan's driving around, doing what caravans do, selling the slaves they picked up. They get to this government official inside of Egypt, and Joseph gets sold to this man in Egypt. What I want to read to, though, is this little phrase here in chapter 39, I think verse 2. Yeah. Yes. So, Joseph, he was sold to this government official. This government official brings him to the house, name's Potiphar. And so, as he's there, it says this in verse 2. It says, the Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. And he was in the house of his Egyptian master. And so, if you've read through this before, you know how the story ends. If you don't, I'm going to give you the JBV, spoiler alert, so that you can, if you read later, you're already going to kind of know what happens. But Potiphar is this guy's name. He's the Egyptian master, and he has a wife. Wife is a little less than pleasant. She is, as Proverbs would say, she's the wayward woman. She tries to trick Joseph into having a bad relationship with him, an inappropriate relationship. And Joseph flees. Joseph runs, he says no, and he does this for a long time, and then finally he legitimately actually flees. But in fleeing, he left a garment of his clothes, and in the offense of running away from this woman and her advances on him, she got mad and told the Egyptian master that Joseph got handsy with her and came at her. And it's like any husband would do for his wife, he lost his ever-loving mind and just threw him in prison. Now you read it yourself. That's a JBV. You read it yourself. There's some issue that Potiphar has with doing this because he knows some things. He has an idea of his life. He's not a government official by absolutely no fault of his own. He is an intelligent person, and he has to do what he has to do, but at the same time, he has some reservations. But even in that, even in going to, or even being thrown in prison, after he's thrown in prison, I don't know where we have. Do you have 21? Is that what the next verse is? Yup, sweet. But now he's in prison, and it says this, but the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. So Joseph's been beat up by his brothers, not due to no fault of his own, and thrown into a pit, right? He's been sold into slavery, and then while he's at slavery, God was with him, and he was successful, and then something terrible happened that wasn't his fault. He was wrongly accused. This may hit somebody, right? wrongly accused. He had to deal with consequences for being wrongly accused, and it was unfair, and he still had to deal with it, and life was unfair, and he was thrown into prison completely to no fault of his own. And it says that the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Do I keep going? Is that verse 22? Yeah, okay, let's keep reading. It says, the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. He being Joseph. Joseph was the one who did it. The keeper, verse 23, I got that one sweet. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him, was with Joseph. And whatever Joseph did, the Lord made it succeed. If you're in family hurt right now, understand this. There's always something that we can work on, that you and I can work on. If you're in family hurt right now, actions have consequences. I'm going to go so bold to say this. It doesn't matter where you're at. I don't care if you're dealing with family hurt. I don't care what you're dealing with. No matter what, you need to understand this truth. There's always something that we can work on. There's always something we can work on. Understand this truth. Actions have consequences. Actions have consequences. Sometimes sometimes, let me just be honest. I don't have a filter more times than not. And in my action of not having a filter, I'll say things and do things without sort of really paying attention to what is the perception around. Having a conversation with somebody, this was a while ago, but I'm having a conversation with somebody, and he mentioned something, and in mentioning whatever the plan was, I lost it in my head. I just fell down a rabbit hole, and I was just gone, thinking. And in that, I'm just blankly staring, and in that, right, there was some miscommunication. Oh, did I make him upset? I didn't mean to. Is he ignoring me? I'm so sorry. No, my actions have consequences. The way my head works and not having to filter and not being aware of other people and just doing what Jeremiah does regardless made this person go, I'm questioning my relationship. No, it was me not being mindful of what my head does sometimes, right? Actions have consequences. Always, no matter what. But specifically, when you're looking at family hurt or pendulum swing it through to family trauma, these things really do apply, right? There's always something we can work on. Actions have consequences, but this is it. Anything given to God, he makes good. Anything given to God, he makes good. Joseph got thrown into a pit by his brothers and sold into slavery. Show hands, anybody ever had that happen to them? Fair. God was with him and he succeeded. Joseph gave that situation to God, and what happened? God made it good. Something bad happened to Joseph when he was doing the right thing. That ever happened to anybody in here? I'm doing the right thing. I'm living my life correctly. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and yet it still feels like nothing is going right. I still am dealing with things that aren't my fault. Why is this bad stuff happening? Maybe that hits somebody. But even in prison, Joseph gave that situation to God, and we see that God was with him and he succeeded in all that he did because God was with him. Joseph's still in prison. He meets the cupbearer. He meets the baker. He tells them a dream, and it goes down what happened. The dream happens the way he explains it. One of these two men dies. One of these two men gets restored back into power with Pharaoh. Pharaoh then has these dreams, years later has these dreams, and the one that got out of jail, who promised Joseph, I'm going to remember you, had forgotten for years about him, remembered, and went, I remember my fault. There's a guy in prison that can do this. And so, as Pharaoh brought Joseph out, Pharaoh said, I've been told that you can tell me my dreams. You can explain this dream that I had. And Joseph says, I cannot do it, but God will do it. He'll give you this answer. And from that moment, this whole process of Joseph now going to become number 2 inside of the most powerful nation in the world at the moment. So much so that it's basically Joseph running this place, because Pharaoh has removed himself and said everything is under your control. Because why? Because God was with him. You keep reading the story. Joseph helped prepare the land for a famine. That famine then in turn brought his family back in front of his face. And when his family was standing there in front of his face, he was able to forgive them for the family hurt that happened so long ago. And that forgiveness of family hurt led to the restoration of him and his family, which ultimately led to the restoration of the people of Israel. And all of it happened because a moment of family hurt, but yet lessons were able to be learned inside of it. And so I don't know where you're at. I don't know what you deal with, but I do know that no matter what, these 3 things apply. But specifically in family hurt, I have found that God is challenging me with these as well. That I need to understand there's always something that I can do better. There's always something that I can work on to be a better Jeremiah. If you're not dead, you're not done. Keep working. Keep working. I've been to church my whole life. Then you ought to know better than everybody. You ought to keep working. I ought to never hear it out your mouth. Make me lose my ever-loving mind. If you ain't dead, you ain't done. Right? If you're upright, all right, keep going. Always something that we can work on. We have to understand that our actions have consequences. The things that you say, the things that you do, they ripple throughout all of it. I lose sleep at night because my mind is a sick place. And one of the sicknesses that I have is swirling around all of the bad decisions that I've made in my parenting and how that's going to affect my children's relationship with me as they get older. The farther they get away from me, the more they're going to want to stay. That kills me inside. But in that, God's very clear. Actions have consequences, young man. If you don't want that consequence, be careful of your actions, right? Same thing applies to all of us in every situation. Actions have consequences. But here's it, dude. Here is the thing. If you find your neighbor sleeping, you got my permission to just smack him with your elbow as hard as you can in the thigh. Trust me, if you're in the right spot, it'll give him a dead leg. It'll be amazing. I know this from experience, years of experience growing up in church where we were not allowed to move and we tried to make our friends get in trouble with our parents. That's the generation I'm a part of. But listen to this. Anything given to God, anything given to God, he will make good. Anything given to God, he will make good. I don't know, Jeremiah. Shh. Anything you give to God, he will make good. Anything you give to God, he will make good. My daughter had cancer. Anything you give to God, he will make good. People have lost children. They've lost loved ones. People have been completely, just in the last week, have been completely removed from their home, and their life has been changed forever. I'm going to stand on business. Anything you give to God, he will make good. Come on with it. I'll give you my real email address if you want to argue that point. I'm about it. Anything you give to God, he will make good. So here's my challenge. In your family hurt, as you sit here and you struggle, my question to you is this. Have you gave it to God? Because if you give it to God, I promise you he'll make it good. You're going to work, you're going to struggle, and God may even touch your hip and try to change your name. But if you give it to God, he will make it good. The worship team's going to come up, and we're going to end. I don't know where you're at with Jesus. I know that the majority of you know who he is. I know the majority of you celebrate your life inside of him. But for those that don't, man, I won't even watch the Bears game today if you want to talk about this. If you don't know Jesus and have Jesus in your life on a consistent basis, like intentionally, that's the scariest thing you could be doing. That's the scariest thing that you could be doing. Because I know what I've lived, and it's only a fraction of what other people have lived, and I can tell you that the lesson that they share with me is the lesson that I've learned to be true, and that is 100% that if you give things to God, he makes them good. They're not always good in the way we thought they were going to be, but they're always good in the way he has them planned out to be. So my challenge to you today, for even days after that God blesses you with, where is it that you need to work on so you can get better? What are the actions that you need to pay attention to that are giving you consequences you'd rather not have? What's that one thing God's asking you to finally let go and let him have? What's that one thing that God's finally asking you, not finally, what's that one thing God's been asking you to let go and let him have that you're going to finally release? I'm going to ask you to stand. We're going to pray, and then we're going to close out with a song. Like always, after our song, we have fellowship time in that room or in the fellowship hall right across the hallway. After fellowship time, we've got Sunday school class. We got Sunday school over here that meets in this room, and we have a Sunday school that also meets in this room over here. It's a great place for you to dig in to God's Word just a little bit more. It's also a place that if you have questions, you get to ask them and not worry about interrupting whatever you feel like is going on in here. But it's an intimate place for you to learn and grow and to jump into God's Word. And so I just want to encourage you that if you have any questions about any of those things, or if you'd like to participate, jump in. Don't be scared, because they're awesome places. But if you wouldn't mind, I'd ask you to pray. Join with me as we pray. God, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for your son. I thank you for just what we have because of him. I just ask, God, as we spend today maybe struggling and wrestling with some things we'd rather not, I just ask that you give us strength, you give encouragement, you give peace. God, if one of us is wrestling with you, my prayer, Lord, is that you touch hip quick so that we can be changed, so we can be focused, and we can be ready to do what it is you've asked us to do and are asking us to do. Father, I'm thankful again for your Spirit. I'm thankful that your Spirit connects all of us together. Continue to draw us closer to each other, strengthen our family here as a church at Windsor, closer and stronger together. Continue to bring people to us that need to see you. Father, it's in your Son's name I pray. And all God's people said, amen.